What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about the adaptations of your favorite comic books into streaming shows and movies. I'm here with my very good friend Brian, who is sitting in front of Unicron, the guy that we know is going to show up in Transformers Rise of the Beasts.
Yeah, I wonder if you would eat Ego.
Yeah, that's a
That
good
would be a
question.
big crossover. I mean, I know Unicron is just Galactus, but
Has Galactus or Ego ever fought each other, you think?
they had to have met at some point.
Yes.
But I mean, I I don't see why I wouldn't eat him.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Ego, the Living Planet today because Brian and I are here to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which came out way back in 2017. And this is all in our preparation for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which comes out in like 2 days.
Well, tomorrow because I'm seeing it tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. Newsflash, I'm seeing it tomorrow too.
Oh,
So
nice.
why the fuck?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so maybe we should have just recorded. Okay, that's fine. We'll do it again.
We'll do it again. Yeah. Anyway, so next week we're going to cover Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But today we're going to talk about Volume 2, which gets a lot of flack. So, Brian.
Why, man? I always love this movie. I have many times said I had a couple minor issues with the first movie. I think this movie is just way better overall.
Yeah.
I think it tells a better story. I mean, it's not an origin story. I think that's the kicker is that people like to get to know the characters. There is something about an origin story that seems to work better for some franchises, and maybe that's the case here. I personally don't think so. I think every arc in this movie for every character is satisfying to me. I think this is an excellent example of a team movie, of a space movie, of an emotional movie. I really can't think of anything bad about. I mean, I can't think of anything bad, but my initial original criticism that I always say is that maybe there are some parts that are a little slow in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I think when Peter goes to Ego's planet, it can seem a little bit of a lull, but I don't think so. I don't think anything's wasted. I think it's what's about 2 hours and 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everything is well used. It doesn't feel like it's too long. It doesn't, nothing feels excessive. It's
Yeah.
great. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I'm going to say that I honestly think I would take Baby Groot over Baby Yoda.
Oh shit! Damn.
After
That's
we watch this movie, honestly.
Yes. I do think that Baby Yoda is a direct result of Baby Groot, like Baby Groot's popularity. You bring up a point that I wanted to address, and let's just get right to it. There is this weird feeling when you watch this movie. There's this storyline that's going on Ego's planet with Peter and Drax and Gamora and Ego himself and Mantis. Then there's this other storyline that's going on with the Ravagers and Rocket and Groot and Yondu, right? Now, I think that there's something about that part where they're divided and it's in the middle where it feels a little off. And I think that at this point in the MCU, people had gotten spoiled. This is the 15th movie in the MCU, and things have just sort of gotten better and better. And within this year that it came out in 2017, you had this movie, then you had Thor Ragnarok, and then you had Spider-Man Far From Home. So I think everybody was like super amped about what's next. And this movie feels like a very personalized movie about the Guardians versus like the next stepping stone towards Thanos.
Of course, this barely has anything to do with the Infinity Saga. Barely.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the inclusion of Gamora and Nebula is really the only connection that there is.
Yeah,
and I think the movie is better for it. Honestly, I think that, like I said last week when we talked about Guardians 1, I would have preferred if the Guardians were kind of like set off on their own, apart from the Earth-based stuff, and we had a whole cosmic Marvel springing out of that, rather than. And I think we would have gotten things more like this movie, and rather than tying it so heavily to the Infinity Saga.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that. I think that the cosmic stuff really flourishes when it's just cosmic stuff and it's not tied in with the Earth stuff, and that goes for the comics too. But I kept trying to think of why do people not like this movie so much, and I have like this one friend who I feel like has really good taste, and he was like really upset with me that I ranked this movie so high. Um, what I was going to say was that pacing in the middle, the emotional beats for the Rocket story with Yondu and the beats with Peter, they're not like synced up. So you have this like really intense, horrible stuff happening with Rocket and Groot, like pretty early on in the movie, and then the stuff with Peter where there's a turn and there's a reveal about Ego. That comes much later in the movie, and so it kind of feels like there's like meandering going on Ego's planet. But as I watch it, every scene is necessary because like it fulfills a point that moves the story forward. It's not like there's sort of any kind of excess baggage that you could really cut out. Do you agree with that? Or
100% agree. Every moment is well used in this movie.
Right.
But you're right. Like there is like a lull in action, I suppose. I mean, they try to move the action forward with on the Rocket and Yondu and Groot side when it's a lull in on the Ego side, and then we do eventually get a big scene there. But that's the only thing I can think of really why people dislike this movie or don't rate it as highly as the first.
Well, I also feel like there's one other thing too, that the first movie was such a darling for like critics and Marvel fans and just everyone in general. People love the first movie. They play the music. They love Groot and Rocket Raccoon. So they're really expecting to knock it out of the park with this movie. And I think that this movie is a really great sequel, but it's not like The Empire Strikes Back or something where it's like, oh my God, this phenomenal sequel. It's just a really great continuation of the story. And with that being said, I think that there's like more jokes that they try to stick in the beginning of this movie, and not every joke lands. And that can also make a movie feel not as good.
See, I disagree there. I think every joke lands in this movie.
You think every joke lands?
Yeah. Well, what's an example? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what's an example of one that didn't land for you?
I mean, there's things that like get little chuckles. Like, for instance, like every time that Quill tells Drax about the batteries, he says whatever the fuck kind of batteries they're called, and then like Drax says the wrong name every time.
The arbulary batteries, and then arbulary. I love that they changed it every time. I like the growth and the layer of that they changed it every time.
Yeah. I mean, Dave Bautista is really good in this in general. I don't know. I actually did appreciate the jokes more the second time too. I think that like it's an experience, and when you go to see it on opening night, the way the audience reacts affects you. And I think that like for whatever reason, the audience wasn't laughing at all the jokes when I originally saw it in 2017.
Oh, see, I can't remember. I don't remember seeing it live that vividly, I guess.
Well, doesn't it just feel like 2017 was like a fucking lifetime ago?
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, at one point, it doesn't sound like it is, but it feels like it, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's only, 7 years ago, but like that feels a lot longer than it sounds.
Well, I mean, it's not even 7 years, right? It's like kind of
6.5, yeah.
Yeah, 6 and change, right? But I mean, COVID and everything, right? After that, and Trump,
True.
if you want to know which side we are politically, like I go, oh, Trump. But but what I was going to say was, this movie is the 15th Marvel movie, and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is what, like 34 or 35?
Something like that. So we've more than doubled since then.
Yeah, there's been 20 Marvel movies and a shit ton of shows, and we've also had Infinity War and Endgame too,
Yeah. Yes.
So it feels like so much since then. But let's talk about what works for this movie. So the opening is once again great.
Fantastic, yeah. Iconic. I love that they. Well, are we talking about the opening with Ego, or are we talking about the opening with the team?
I was talking about with the team. However, that opening with Ego is very good too.
Yes, and this is actually maybe something that I feel hasn't aged well. But I remember thinking at the time when I saw it, like, wow, that DH Kurt Russell actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And this time watching it on TV, I'm like, I can see that that's a DH Kurt Russell. Like, I could really tell this time, like some people talk about the chin or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was the kiss scene, actually. That was like, wow, like that looks really fake.
Yeah.
So that I mean, whatever. It's CG. It's not perfect, whatever. It's still it's incredible, honestly.
Yeah.
But I did feel that that has gotten better over time.
Yeah. I really like that sequence. I mean, the way that it's shot too. You know, you have that big font that shows where it is and then the year. It's 1980. And you have that song Brandy, which I really had not listened to until I started watching this movie. And once again, with this movie, I would just listen to the songs from the soundtrack over and over again and become familiar with them. Songs I never heard of before, or listened to before.
And
I love these songs.
And Brandy too is mentioned throughout the movie. It's part of the theme, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we see kind of there's something going on where he has this little plant, and it kind of reminded me of Critters, like where the Critters had these little eggs, and they were kind of planted in the barn and in the field and shit. I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Critters, which I'm sure is some kind of influence on James Gunn. But then we jump from that to 34 years later, which would only bring us to 2014, and this movie came out in 2017. So the idea is that like this movie's not too long after the first Guardians. Yeah. So what do you think of the sovereign people that they had to like rescue the batteries for?
So I wasn't sure. I didn't recognize them from any comics previously.
Right.
I don't believe that race is a part of Adam Warlock's origin or anything like that, or at least it wasn't back then.
Yeah,
I could be wrong about that, but they were there as a plot device essentially. You know, they hired the Guardians. It shows what they're doing. You know, they're just kind of mercenaries, sort of.
Right.
And they hired to do a job, and then you know, it starts out with Rocket stealing the batteries,
right,
which kind of sets them on a path that causes the entire movie to happen.
Right. It's one of those like problems that like it grows for the Guardians and life gets harder. But had they not done this, then they might not have run into Ego, you know. And so yeah, I mean, I think he probably was actively seeking Quill out because Ego mentions that he heard that Quill had held an Infinity Stone and not died. So he knew that was his son. So I guess Ego would have run into him, but you know, maybe their interaction would have gone differently. But they go to rescue these batteries that are like, I guess, like there's a creature that seems to be wanting to get the batteries. It's like interdimensional weird alien creature that they fight in the beginning. And I just love that fucking montage of them like shooting the creature and stabbing it while Groot's dancing around.
Yep, and great song playing in the background. I love the focus on Groot with all the stuff going on in the background. It's a great opening. You don't see stuff like that too often. You know, usually they focus on the actual action, but I appreciated that. And honestly, this watching this scene is what made me think like, wow, like this is very familiar from The Mandalorian more recently. And but I ultimately think that this was better. And I think part of that reason is that it doesn't last. You know, it's just this movie and that's it. It's not too much. It's just the right amount, honestly.
Yeah, agreed. And it's kind of cool that like he's Baby Groot in this, and you know it's in 2014. And then the next time we see him is like Avengers: Infinity War, and I guess he's kind of like adolescent Groot. And enough years could have passed between then. That you make a really good point about comparing him to Baby Yoda and how like it's just enough. That's a really good point. And you made a really good point at the very beginning of our discussion, how you said that, oh God, I had it in my head lined up. Shit. Oh, God damn it.
You're pulling to me today.
I wanted to give you credit for what you said. And then I was like, you also said a really good other fucking thing too. God damn it. It was about, that sequence with Groot okay. So you said it's a really good team movie. That's what you said.
Yes.
You said it's a really good team movie. And I think that one thing that's really established in that opening sequence is the way that they talk to each other and stuff. Like Star-Lord gets like knocked over at one point and he's on the ground by Groot and he says like Groot, like, and you could just tell by Chris Pratt's tone of voice that like he's trying to help him. They've been kind of in these situations before. There's all little subtle things like just their tone of voice, the way they physically interact with each other that shows that these people have been together for a while. Like you really feel that sense of the team.
Yeah, totally.
and like there's arguing and bickering between Quill and Rocket Raccoon, which kind of sets this whole adventure off, and that just kind of feels like that's par for the course too.
Yeah, I mean, what Yondu eventually says to Rocket later in the movie is that he keeps people at arm's length because he just doesn't know how to feel and do things. It's set up here, yeah.
Yeah, we watched Peacemaker, and we were we love that show, and I feel like everything that James Gunn does in this, he does right. And with Peacemaker, there's a few things that are like a little off, and it's not as good as this. There are moments in Peacemaker that are better than a lot of the stuff in this, but I feel like this is the most consistently good.
Well, I think I think it's that's got to be the medium. This is like we said, a 2 hour and 20-minute movie where Peacemaker was a 10 episodes, 8 episodes, whatever show.
Right.
And I think with the show, you have to hit various beats in an episode length that you may not be best for the overall story, but it needs to be, work for the episode to keep people interested and engaged. So I think when you're working with a movie, I mean, it's hard to hit beats in anything really. There are plenty of terrible movies out there, or movies people don't like, even while others do. Yeah. But I honestly think that, and I don't know what you're saying because I really enjoyed Peacemaker so much that I actually bought a Peacemaker comic today, which feels very much like the show. Honestly, I don't know what you're talking about when you're talking about the moments you didn't feel worked.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. Like with Peacemaker, and then also with the Suicide Squad that James Gunn did, I feel like this is what I feel. I feel like there is like humor in all of these movies that he makes, but with Peacemaker and with the Suicide Squad, it's like they put in a little too much, and it doesn't always land, and it'll feel bloated because there's like scenes where they kind of just keep riffing, and it's like, okay, again, it's funny, but it's like it's not as tight. Whereas this movie, like you said, it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes, and also it's censored because it's a Marvel movie. So I think that like when he has those restrictions, it's like a lot tighter, and it just is. It like works better. It's like Taika Waititi, right? Like Thor Ragnarok is like great. It's in my top 10, but Thor: Love and Thunder is pretty close to the bottom for me.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say that most of the I bet there was probably not much improv done on the set of Guardians 2. Right. I guarantee that there was some improv on Thor 3. And I guarantee that they thought, hey, we did so well with the improv last time, let's do more of it.
Right.
And that's where it was too much, or some of it didn't work, or something like that. Like that one, I totally agree that not every joke works.
Yeah.
Or some of them are just completely unsatisfying. They don't even give you that little chuckle or anything.
Right.
I still think that everything here works really well in this movie.
Yes.
I really can't think of what I didn't think worked in Peacemaker, but I understand what you're talking about when they go on those kind of tangents, like when like Peacemaker and Economos
Vigilante.
Or Vigilante, or just arguing back and forth about something, and they just kind of go on a tangent. Yeah. I find those things fun. I can't think of the exact jokes off the top of my head right now, but I did find them funny.
Okay, so what'd you think of the Suicide Squad?
I loved the first like 40 minutes or 45 minutes of it or so. Then I feel like it had a weird plateau, and then it just took this weird turn at the end. So I did like the movie a lot, but there is a turning point. Like the first, when they first up into the point where they're first getting to the island, they first meet the rebel forces or whatever. That's all excellent. That's all like top tier for me. But then they're kind of traveling afterwards, and they go to like a bar and go to a party, and they're riding on a bus and some shit.
Yeah,
that's all weird filler for me.
Yeah, and the Harley Quinn stuff feels kind of weird too, where she's like a prisoner.
Quinn stuff was a little weird. I did really like that the joke which was in the trailer where they're going to rescue her and she's just walking down the street. Like I thought that was hysterical, honestly.
Right.
And they obviously needed to show what she was doing to make it funny, but the stuff she was doing wasn't that good. It was a little weird that guy was so obsessed. All right, it's a choice though. Whatever, it's fine. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't exactly all there, you know.
Right.
Then the end with Starro and all that, like that was weird. Like it's not bad, but it's both the middle and the end feel like different movies than the beginning to me.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So I mean, I thought that I really liked this movie the first time I saw it. Then when I would hear like my friends talking about it, I'm like, okay, well, is there something wrong with this with Guardians Volume 2? But then watching it, I'm like, what the fuck is the matter with these people? Like,
I don't know. Oh no, you froze.
Well, in all these James Gunn comic book adaptations, there are these amazing sequences where, like,
you're cutting out.
Oh no, I'm cutting out.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. You seem to be stabilizing. Okay.
What I was saying was that like these movies, they feel like the Transformers, the movie from 1986, because like the imagery syncs up so well with this music, and it's always this interesting musical choice that James Gunn makes for each of these sequences.
Yeah, and on top of that too, the Guardians theme is really good. Like the original theme.
Yep,
is really good, and I think it's underrated in terms of overall on the Marvel side.
I think that the Guardians theme is the most recognizable MCU theme besides the Avengers theme.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, and like the MCU doesn't actually really have a lot of good themes for some reason. They don't use like that kind of thematic like Batman 1989 or Superman kind of theme stuff. But this is a good theme. I agree.
Yeah. Totally.
So let's talk about some of those sequences, though, right? So you have pretty early on the sequence where Rocket is working on their ship, and then the Ravagers show up, and it's this song like Lakeshore Drive that's playing, right? No. It's Southern Nights, right? And I've never heard that song before, but it's just fucking great the way he like messes up all those Ravagers, just him.
Yeah. And he doesn't actually kill anybody either. He's just kind of just fends them off. And he has fun doing it. It was a great thing. You see this tiny little raccoon just literally taking out this army of guys by himself.
Right. And that leads to, the Ravagers capturing him and Groot, and I guess Nebula too. But then the Ravagers have this sort of like, mutiny, because Yondu just wants to return the batteries and not, turn in the Guardians. What did you think of that sequence when they start like putting the Ravagers out into space?
They seem to like to do that because they did that in the first movie too. Well, not the Ravagers. I mean, just Gunn. Like they had the scene where Peter and Gamora are out there in the freezing. So they did that again, and that was a little bit terrifying. Mutiny is kind of scary there, and I believe one of the guys that survives actually is Steve Agee, who was Economos in Peacemaker and Suicide Squad.
Oh, is he the one with the thick glasses?
Thick glasses, kind of bald head, and the beard. Yeah.
Okay.
He had a couple lines. But before we get too into that too, I also want to comment on the song in Rocket. I really loved how often Rocket mentions Quill's music.
Yes.
Kind of says it like in a way like he hates it, doesn't like it, but he clearly does.
Yep.
I really appreciate that little nod there. I think that adds a lot of like a very small little choice that adds a lot of depth to his character and his arc.
Yeah, really great point. I noticed that. Yeah, in the very beginning, he's like working on something so they can play music when they fight. He's listening to the music when he's working on the ship. Then at the end of the movie, or not the end, but like when he's with Yondu on the ship, they're like, "Do you have any copies of Quill's music?" Yeah. So it's funny because with him, we know that he's been experimented on, and we're going to see some crazy stuff in Volume 2, but he is able to take out all those guys. And then we get to that mutiny, like I was talking about, and the guy that was on Yondu's side was this actor that was in like Gladiator, and he's in Sons of Anarchy. He's a pretty big character in Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's an interesting guy because he has like scars right here on his mouth, like kind of like the Joker.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he's an Irish guy, so I'm wondering if like maybe it was some sort of like Irish gang thing, because I know that's the thing that they do is like cut your face like that.
I did not know that. That's the guy that they actually physically you see them throwing out the airlock, right?
Yeah, like it's a fantastic fucking shot because he's just like floating there and he looks scared. And then you see one of the best things about it is that you see the Ravagers looking at him and essentially see what he would see last before he died. And it's just so well done. It's like a really disturbing sequence, and it gets you.
And I also want to comment too that before that we see what the Ravagers are doing on Contraxia, which is like a no rules planet kind of thing.
Right.
And he runs into some of the original Guardian characters from before this iteration. So Sylvester Stallone is Starhawk, and I think it's just Martinex there. I think after that,
right.
But he says something to him like, you broke the code, you did the one thing, and there's a really great scene where he says like, do you think I take pleasure out of like exiling you? I don't. Like, you broke our heart. You broke all our hearts.
Yeah.
And I think that really is a nice contrast to this mutiny here because, he keeps Yondu keeps kind of letting Quill get away with things that he wouldn't normally let anybody else get away with. So they think he's going soft. So I think it's a nice setup from the last movie that continues on here. And I really like that connection.
Yeah. Yondu gets so much development in this movie. It's crazy. They set it up so there's a lot of development for him, and then when he dies, there's this big payoff. I don't know if you, I think you might have even been the one that shared the article with me, but it was like Gamora was the original person they were planning on killing.
Yeah, that's true, and that would have been a clear it was clearly stated that they're killing this character to advance Quill's story, so that would have been fridging.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what we got here is so much better than what they could have come up with, whatever it could have been.
Exactly. I completely agree. They like turned and focused it all on Yondu and kind of like his redemption. And Yondu, the character, is now like they have that version of Yondu in the current Marvel comics, even though the Yondu from the Guardians comic is like in the future. Like
I will say that I read the 90s version of the Guardians. Like I had a whole bunch of issues. And when they first introduced Yondu in the previous movie, I'm like, this is weird. This doesn't feel right. I wasn't like a huge Yondu fan or anything like that.
Right.
But I'm like, this is so different than what he was. Cause I almost, he almost seems like a sort of like a Native American allegory to me.
Sure.
And he's very, very different in that movie. But to me, it's like, by the end of this movie, I'm like, this is better. Like this is flat out better.
Right. And that's kind of the way I felt with all the Guardians characters. And he dies obviously, and it's this kind of tragic moment. But there's that Mary Poppins y'all, which I know that was sort of like a meme that was going on. And Michael Rooker is just so likable too.
Yeah.
He has such an amazing set piece that is maybe even the highlight of this whole movie. When he lets his arrow free.
Yes. That you always talk about scenes that you look forward to seeing, and I tried to keep that in the back of my mind. I'm like, that's one of them. That scene set to that song, come a little bit closer, which is not the version that I'm used to hearing.
Right.
And it is so perfect. Them just strolling through that arrow, killing the aerial shots, everything about that scene is perfect.
Yep. Totally agree, man. Yeah. And that's once again, like that's a song that I just learned because of James Gunn, with the Ravagers though, we have Kraglin too, who I know has kind of become like a bigger member of the team. And I think he's going to be a bigger part of, the third one, but like, he's the one that actually says, hey, come on, you always pick Quill's side. And there's this sort of like this feeling of, Kraglin is sort of, Yondu's son, and then Quill is kind of Yondu's son, and he's like kind of preferring Quill all the time. And then you have this stuff with Ego and Quill as his son. So there's all this like daddy issue stuff. And there's this fantastic line that Yondu has at the very end. He says like, he might have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy or something like that.
Best line in the movie. Absolute best line in the movie.
Yeah. So, we talked about like kind of the father stuff. Then there's also this stuff with Gamora and Nebula. And I think that like this, you talked about like how this is kind of the only tissue that really connects to Infinity War and I guess Endgame too. But you really need this piece to make that piece work in Infinity War.
Yes.
And then Endgame too.
Yeah, and the scene where she arrives on Ego's planet and starts attacking Gamora. I mean, it does seem convenient that it just happens that she's walking out by herself in a field and the ship comes at that time. But the payoff of that scene is where I just wanted a sister. Another very powerful line of this movie works so goddamn well, and how that just completely changes the context of their relationship right there is amazing, really.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because that reminded me of what I wanted to say earlier. That like these movies in particular, but I think probably James Gunn's work in general is a lot about people that are screw ups, that make poor choices. They might not even be that smart, but they kind of come together and they try to do the right thing. And it's that sort of interaction with all these people that is just so entertaining and so good, and you root for them. I mean, we clearly saw that in Peacemaker. I think the Suicide Squad is like where we kind of see it like the least, even though they're all like criminals and fuck ups and stuff. You don't care for the Suicide Squad team as much as you care for the Peacemaker people and the Guardians.
Well, yes, but I think the team came together with that whole we have to, we're screw up, but we got to do this because the whole end against Star, like they could have left, like their mission was done. They could have and should have left, but they said like, no, we're going to do this. And I did care about those end characters that were still left, Bloodsport and Ratcatcher 2 and Polka Dot Man and King Shark. Although maybe King Shark a little bit less, I guess, oddly. I thought I would love him, but I think there's so many different takes on him now, and I don't know. I felt like it was a little lackluster.
Yeah. Well, so we talked about like kind of the ragtag group and all the weirdos and stuff, and then we mentioned father relationships. So let's talk about Ego too. So Kurt Russell, you're a big fan, right?
Love Kurt Russell.
Yes.
He is an icon of the silver screen to me.
Yeah.
The man can play Santa Claus and just work it like.
Right. You watch those movies, the Christmas Chronicles?
They're good.
Okay.
Oh, the second one goes a little thorough. The first one is actually a really good Christmas movie.
Okay.
He sings like a blues song. I can't remember what he sings. It's fantastic.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm a big Kurt Russell fan too, and when they said that he was Ego the Living Planet, that's the weird thing, right? Is that I can't say, oh, I love this like Ego the Living Planet story arc, or I really love his previous appearance in a cartoon. It's like I've seen him before on some things, and he's just a fucking planet with like a beard, right?
Yeah.
So when you see that Kurt Russell is cast as him, you think like, what? Like, what is this? He almost seems like, what is it, Jason of Spartax?
Yes. Yeah. I 100% think that they modeled his avatar after Jason of Spartax while merging it with the backstory and character of Ego. 100% there. But honestly, I prefer this.
Yeah.
100% prefer this. I think Kurt Russell, it's like you see Kurt Russell and he's doing these nice things. And you see everything seems great. And something bad is going to happen. I mean, we kind of know, because we know who Ego is. He's not a hero. He's not really a villain, I guess, but he's a cosmic being that doesn't really give a shit about human problems and stuff,
Right.
But I just like that it's this bright, shiny thing, and then that's the villain. And then, you have Yondu, who is this kind of like, backward planet rogue. And then he's the heroic dad, Yes. I love that comparison there.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And even though that I know that twist and that flip is coming, like it still worked. I was still like in the moment when he says like, oh, it really hurt when I had to give your mother cancer. Like he says it so nonchalantly, and like it's such a good scene. Yeah.
Kurt Russell, I mean, it shows his acting abilities, right? Like there's a reason why these people stand out and we love them so much. He goes through a whole range in this movie where I think he is one of the more sinister and scary Marvel villains because I mean, there's. I think he's the direct result of a bunch of children being murdered, right?
Yeah.
he plans on, essentially remaking the whole universe in his image. But, when he's sitting there, and you mentioned the song Brandy before and how it's throughout the whole movie, when he's explaining the lyrics to Star-Lord, that's a great scene. When he's talking about like what his experience was just as a Celestial by itself, like that's just exposition. And you know how I get annoyed by exposition, but it's all in his delivery and the emotion behind it that makes it not boring, not filler. It's poignant stuff. It's about his character.
Yeah, and like I said, it informs that line that's why it hurt me so much to give your mother cancer.
Right.
It's just matter of fact, yesterday was Tuesday, I gave your mother cancer. And all of that beforehand just informs that sentence and that line delivery so much.
Right. Because he says, I returned to Earth 3 times, or I went to Earth 3 times, and I knew by the 4th time that I would never leave or something like that. So I had to give her cancer. Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good. There is one sequence, though, that I need to mention. I have to mention this because I said to you that, like, and I say this often, that syncing up of like imagery and music in movies kind of gives you like this transcendent feeling sometimes. And the Transformers, the movie, has so many moments where like the music is just perfectly synced up with the imagery, right? This movie has this moment that gets me every single time. Sometimes I'll just watch this moment by itself, but it's when they go to Ego's planet and it's playing My Sweet Lord by George Harrison.
Yep.
It's like it's shot so perfectly, and like I do a disservice trying to describe it, but it's like the way the guitar sounds like fits with the action, that like the way their ship is moving on the screen, and then when like bubbles float into the screen, it kind of goes along with like the chiming noise and the chorus coming in. It's so fucking perfect.
It feels like, I mean, I know it's a George Harrison solo song, but it feels like a fucking Beatles video,
Right. And like James Gunn consistently does this. Like the Suicide Squad, I keep kind of ragging on it, but like that's the weakest of all of these, and yet even that has these great fucking sequences in it too.
Yeah.
So there was one other sequence that I kind of forgot about. I knew that like Star-Lord kind of turns the table on Ego at the very end, and kind of fights back, but I forgot that it was to Fleetwood Mac's The Chain.
Oh yeah, that was good too. Yeah. Well, that's when he first kind of realizes. First, the scene starts with, "I don't control the arrow with my head. I control it with my heart." And then you hear the chain, and then he realizes he has this power, and he's going at Ego, and that's fantastic.
Exactly. It like that sequence is so well done because like you see each Guardian kind of fall, and it's like this real miserable thing where they're being like covered by rock and stuff, and then like he fights back, and it's sort of like this Man of Steel kind of battle where they're flying through the air punching each other, and then each Guardian gets loose, and like when they get loose, it like syncs up with like notes in the song too, and it's like real like, oh, Yondu's free and Gamora's free. It's so fucking good, man.
Yeah.
So I know I've like kind of prattled along a lot, but what else do you want to say about this movie?
Prattled?
Chris prattled, but what else you got for this?
Just we didn't talk too much about Drax or Mantis.
Oh yeah.
And maybe their roles are not that large in this movie. I mean, Drax really is largely used for comic relief. There's not much to. If you had to say there was a character with this the least amount of arc, I would probably say it's Drax and Mantis.
Yeah.
But I still think if there's something satisfying about it, of their friendship, which kind of sets up, the holiday special later on, honestly.
Yeah. Clearly they have a friendship. We kind of see it even in like Infinity War too. But yeah, they're really funny. There is actually one really great scene where he's sitting with her and he mentions his family, and then she like touches him just to kind of see what it feels like, and she's sort of overwhelmed because of his grief. And I think it's this great way of showing like, oh, this is what it's like inside this guy all the time. He just seems silly.
Yeah.
But he's like truly suffering. And Dave Bautista is just so fucking funny in this too.
Yeah, absolutely. I would still pick him as my favorite.
Yeah. And Palm Clementif is a good addition to the cast. Like she says some like super funny shit. There's like one part where she sees Rocket Raccoon and she's like, "This." What does she say? She says something like, "This crabby puppy is so cute I want to die. She says something like that, right?
I love the prank, the practical joke part where she asks, "Can I pet your puppy?"
Right.
And Drax is like, "Yeah."
Yeah. He like nods.
And then the over the top laugh afterwards.
Right. Yeah. Even that sequence, because like when they marketed this movie, when they showed the trailers, they showed that scene where they're going over the bomb and Rocket's going through the steps and Groot's like, "I am Groot." And then they also showed the sequence where like she touches Quill and she finds out that he's in love with Gamora. And like you'd think that wouldn't land after seeing the movie and seeing the trailer so many times, but I think that seems real funny still.
Yeah, it did. It was great. Both scenes were with Groot hitting the button and the scene with Mantis too. Everything. Yeah. I think they all landed to me.
Nice, man. Well, so then why don't we go ahead and talk about our rankings and if our rankings have changed for this movie?
I just want to also again accentuate the the kind of twist where I mentioned earlier. Ego is the shiny, charismatic dad, a rich dad, and then Yondu is kind of like the rough around the edges kind of bad dad, but it's just really the complete opposite. And all that stuff just hits so hard when they flip that around there. And then I'm Mary Poppins, y'all, and then he may be your father, but I'm your daddy, and just all of that stuff. And then the second, all the Guardians are fleeing the ship, and Rocket knows he has to take off with it, that's it, and Quill's still behind there, and everyone's like, "Where's Quill?" And that's all great, because they're all so tight knit and they don't want to leave anybody behind. And the conversations that Rocket and Yondu have about, from earlier, it comes to a head of how they're the same, and that how he needs to change and not do what Yondu is doing. And then the second Rocket gives Yondu the backpack and the little shield thing, although it's like a MacGuffin, whatever. The purpose it serves, man, just you know exactly what's going to happen there. And it was just fantastically executed. How he sacrifices himself to save Peter in the end, and established himself as the father that he never knew he had.
Yeah, completely agree. With Rocket, I know that they had an actual raccoon like on set and stuff to use sort of as a reference for him. And he just looks so realistic. You're never sitting there thinking like, oh, that's a computer animated person. You just think that's this, kind of creature that looks just as real as anybody else in this movie. And Bradley Cooper, I think he gets kind of underappreciated because his delivery and stuff as Rocket has such a range too.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget it's even him, honestly.
Right. But yeah, he has this great line. He zaps Gamora right at the end. He's like, I can only lose like one friend
today. Oh man.
Yeah. So great. And then the very last shot of the movie is, they have the funeral for Yondu, and they're playing that Cat Stevens song. And my other friend, who's a big MCU fan, he says this movie's so fucking great. And he says that end scene is so great.
Yeah, so he gets the Ravager funeral, his old guy, because they told him what happened, and
he redeemed himself. And then the very last shot is kind of a somber shot, and it's sort of Rocket just thinking to himself. And I always thought, I'm like, okay, this is setting up the third movie. Like the third movie is going to be about Rocket, and it's going to be something with him, and it might be his last movie.
Yeah.
So okay, well then, with that being said, the third movie's coming out this week, and it's going to add to our Marvel rankings. We should talk about where the two Guardians movies fall in our rankings. So, what are they in your top 10?
Yes, now they are.
Now they are. All right. So
two was always there. I did move it up.
Nice. Okay.
I have a problem with recency bias. I don't know. I don't know how. I can't keep the knowledge of 30, 32, 33 movies in my head at all times.
Yeah. So then you want to give me your top 10?
Yes. So number 10, I have Guardians 1, which came up. I got over my slight issues with the end sequence and the sort of lackluster villain. I think it's great. Next, I have Captain America: Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have Avengers. Then Infinity War. Then I
Oh,
have Winter Soldier,
okay.
Thor Ragnarok,
Yeah.
Guardians 2,
Whoa.
Endgame. No Way.
Whoa. Oh, you with the No Way Home. I knew that was going to be in there. It's number
Yeah,
one.
you've known that. You've known that for a while. It's been there since that movie came out. I'm not changing that.
Shit,
Not
man.
yet.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, well, mine is shifted, and I need to change my whole lineup. But we were real close, and then there's a drastic difference. But for my number 10, I have the first Iron Man because I think that's like a good, well-rounded movie. I think Rob Downey Jr. is fantastic. Then I have Civil War, which that's synced up with you, right? You have Civil War for 9.
Yes.
Then I have Avengers. That's synced up with you too, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then I think you put Infinity War here.
Yes.
Right? Okay, I have the Winter Soldier here. Then I have Thor Ragnarok. Then I have for my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For my 5, I have Guardians of the Galaxy. Then I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 as my number 4. Then I have Endgame, Black Panther, and then Infinity War.
Okay, so the only movie we have different then is
Iron Man.
Iron Man, and you don't have Thor Ragnarok, right?
No, Thor Ragnarok is my number 6.
Number 6? Okay, wait.
Yeah, I'll go through it one more time real quick.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Iron Man's. So what do I have that you don't have then? Did I not do 10?
You have No Way Home. I don't have No Way Home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I get it. I honestly I need to go back and just watch all of these fucking movies in order, and maybe I'll get to do that with my daughters too. But these Guardians movies have always had a place in my heart just because I love the comics so much, and I feel like just a little short story. There was a year at one of my schools where we had to make a decoration with pumpkins, right? And they said do something creative, and so I did a pumpkin, but I made it into Groot, where it had like sticks and stuff, and then I had like a little rocket raccoon next to it. Oh no! I'm so full of shit. I used sticks to make Groot. And then I made the pumpkin into a raccoon because my school's mascot was a raccoon, right? And this was like maybe 2 years before Guardians even came out. And I was like, they're going to make this movie and everyone's going to love this movie. They're going to love these 2 characters. And I felt like so fucking, like I was fucking Nostradamus, right? But it was true. And I'm like, I knew they were going to love these characters because it's just, they're so much fun.
Yeah.
And boy, did they pick the right fucking person to make them.
Yeah.
You excited about the third one now?
Yeah, I'm hearing. I mean, every headline you see is sensationalist, but like, I'm excited. I hear we're in for a ride, and I'm almost. I almost don't want to bring my son at first because I'm a little afraid it's going to be a little too much emotionally, but
yeah,
we're doing it. So
yeah, the one thing I've heard consistently, and maybe this might be a reason why I don't want to bring Brandon, is I heard there's like a lot of like animal cruelty in it.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I've heard that. Yes.
So let me ask you this. This is one bit of news. Did you see any of the Fantastic Four casting news today?
No.
Okay. So there's this dude, I think he's Irish, and I clicked on one of these articles. I feel like it's like total clickbait kind of stuff, and I totally fell for it. But it's like a young kid. I think he's Irish because he's in like this Irish like love story show that my wife really loved. Can't remember his fucking name, but they were saying that he might be Johnny Storm, right?
Okay.
Then they announced the rumors that they have about the Thing, and I felt like I was being punked. Oh, no. And that might be a clue as to the rumors about the Thing.
Oh no!
Have you not heard? Have you not heard?
I haven't heard anything since the last time I saw something about Adam Driver and Mr. Fantastic.
Okay. Let's do a little fun little exercise. Picture the last fucking person you would ever picture playing the Thing, and just say it.
I don't know.
And it could be like a random thing.
Kanye West.
Kanye West. Kanye West would almost make more sense than this.
Oh God, that's horrible.
For the thing,
I said Kanye West is a joke because
yeah.
the thing is a proud Jewish character, and Kanye West is not a fan of Jewish people.
Oh, good. Okay, here's the thing. Literally, we're talking about the thing. It is a potential Jewish actor, but
Okay.
the rumor. This is why I felt like I was being punked. Mila Kunis.
What?
Mila Kunis.
I mean, I know that they had was Alicia the thing for a while? Alicia Masters?
Yeah, I think so.
I can remember. I know they did that, but no.
I'm telling you today, I read the rumor that they were saying Mila Kunis. I don't know if I'm being fooled or something, but they were saying that was the rumor, and that people.
You can't do that. No. I mean, nothing against Mila Kunis, but that's no. I don't think this is the right place for a gender swap. I mean, if you were doing, if this was like a subsequent movie and you already had Ben Grimm somewhere, and you were doing the Alicia Masters version where she's or has a thing body or whatever. I don't remember how that happened anymore. I think that's fine, but as an introduction to it, like you can't break the foundation. I don't think here.
Oh, look who's commented over here, Mr. Dr. Zayas God, Danny Torkel. Hasn't this actor denied all rumors? Probably.
They all do though. Everybody has to deny these things. It's like it's like in their contracts.
Yeah. Happy birthday to Danny, by the way. His birthday was yesterday. Or 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Yeah. And he's on our other channel, the Lasser Cast, if you want to hear me talk about horror movies and stuff too. So you're not buying the Mila Kunis?
There's no way, man. There's no way that they're gonna do that. Like they can absolutely. I mean, they really do need to cast a Jewish person as this character, I think. Yeah. But I don't know, because that's such an important part of his character, honestly. Yeah, and I don't think they can. This is a proper thing to race swap. Not race swap, gender swap.
Right. Danny is saying, seeing Guardians of the Galaxy 3 on Sunday. Can't wait. Oh, we got you beat this time, finally, Torkel. We're seeing it tomorrow.
Not midnight like you do, but
yes.
I'm not anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm not going. I'm going after work tomorrow. Yeah. Cool, man. All right. Well, this is our Guardians discussion for the week, and then I guess our next week's episode around this time will be Volume 3. And then Brian and I just have to figure out what the fuck we're going to do. There's also a writer's strike, which is probably going to affect the shows that we review too.
Oh my God, yeah. I've seen news of a lot of things shutting down production. I know you've reviewed Yellow Jackets a lot. That shut down season 3, I believe, after 1 day of production.
Oh no!
And then all kinds of staples like Saturday Night Live stopped, and all the late night shows.
Yes.
And I sent you a tweet the other day about. This is just a reminder of what happened in the last writer's strike, and it's like Revenge of the Fallen, G.I. Joe: Rise of Cobra, Quantum of Solace. What else was in there? That was in that tweet. Everything was awful.
X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh my God, Wolverine, Terminator Salvation, Dragon Ball.
Oh my God, what a time!
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes, yeah, that was a pretty shitty time. Again, people. Yeah, please. Let's get this resolved pretty quickly so we can get back into recording our shows. I know that House of the Dragon, they were able to finish all their scripts, and so they're going to film them all. Danny wrote The Lost Curse is happening.
Yeah, that's true. That took place during the last strike as well.
Yeah.
I saw that news about House of the Dragon, but it still doesn't make me feel at ease because a lot of script changes can happen during the filming of a season, especially with movies. That a lot of them are getting changed filming that day.
Yeah.
Maybe that doesn't happen as much with TV shows. I'm not really sure, but just the idea that if something were to come up, they couldn't really consult anybody, so they have to stick with the original draft or the final draft of that script. I don't know. I like that. I would feel more comfortable with it if they had the ability to fix something with someone that wrote it in the first place.
Yeah.
Rather than someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
Right. Yeah. Because like with Quantum of Solace, I remember like they were asking Daniel Craig. They were like, "Oh, what do you think James Bond would do?"
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I heard. The only people that were allowed to script write on that movie, I haven't even seen the movie, honestly, were Daniel Craig and the director, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. No, I actually thought Quantum of Solace was not that bad in hindsight, but yeah, it's still not that good. Yeah. Cool, man. All right. Well, this is our Guardians discussion, and we'll be back next week for Guardians Volume 3. Thank you, Danny, and everyone else. Make